Welcome back, kids. Now I'm going to start this by clearing something up. If you thought that the subjects we cover here are weird or sit there watching these videos wondering what exactly goes on in this beautiful, slightly despicable me Gru looking head of mine, you're not alone. I have been asked that many times. All I can tell you is that the unhold music in my head is the theme tune to the Magic Roundabout. I say this as a warning because, well, this one is definitely a rabbit hole episode caused by one of you beautiful bunch. After the last episode released, I got sent a transcript of a 911 call from America detailing how a man had inserted a firecracker in the tip of his wee willy winky and set it off. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, this isn't something that is going to end well. The transcript actually goes into quite some detail with the caller stating, "There's bits of penis everywhere. He's running in and out of the Chinese restaurant screaming." I would be too. Now, I will admit, I went on a bit of a deep dive to see if I could find a news report to back up this transcript, but I couldn't find one, which is disappointing because part of me kind of wants it to be true. But we don't count things as accurate unless we can find those news reports. So if you can find it, send us the link. That fella needs his Darwin Award certificate. I'd say he's definitely qualified. So I guess you're now wondering why we're all here. If I didn't find that news report, what are we all doing here? Well, it's because I found so much more. This has been a journey down a rabbit hole that has had me experience every emotion imaginable. It's had me angry, it's had me laughing, crying, and cringing. The lengths that people have gone to in order to destroy their longest serving closest friend is really quite astonishing. The lengths that people have gone to destroy other people's wee willy winkies is just as amazing. We have shootings, sports accidents, industrial accidents, revenge attacks, and of course, we have Hoovers. And if you manage to stick this episode out long enough without losing your lunch, I'll even tell you how I nearly fell into this category myself. Welcome, kids, to today's edition of Grumpy Ewok's Idiocracy Chronicles, Volume 2. Bye bye, Willy. I say sponsors, but we're new, so we don't actually have one. Instead, I'm going to tell you about our favourite charity, Operation Florence, formed by a lovely bunch of ex and currently serving healthcare and emergency service personnel who see the decline in funding and gaps in capability as a real problem. They're working to build a volunteer-based emergency medical rescue and healthcare service that they hope will one day have locations across the country. But to do this, they need funding. I know, it's kind of ironic, but there it is. But they're awesome, so we really want to help them. So if you want to know more about them, details of how you can donate or not, or how to find out more about these amazing people, all the details you need will be pinned in the video description below. You're still here. Well done, you. You're either going to love or regret that decision, to be honest. Either way, let's get into it. Now, I'm not going to lie, having been fully down the rabbit hole for this episode, I am still struggling to work out how to start it. So I guess I'm going to go with my gut and give you a guided tour of the journey I took, which of course all started with a 911 call I was sent. Like I said, I have no idea at this time if it is real or not. I do have two victims that I turn to for help with research, and between the three of us, we have not been able to find any trace in news reports to back this up. But that said, the original image I was sent does look like a picture taken from a CAD screen. For those that aren't familiar, CAD is a digital dispatch system used by ambulance services, or EMS for our brethren across the pond, and other emergency services for that matter. You get some information through radio comms and the detail is there on a screen. And that is what this looks like, a picture of that screen. So I'll give you the rundown of the call screen image, which I have to admit a part of me really hopes is true. This would be a shout to attend that you really could tell the grandkids about. The call originates from a state unknown in America and details how a 17-year-old male is not conscious but breathing with a rest rate that is both low and agonal. That's really not good. But the screen does give us more detail of what the caller states because, well, it does explain the problem. And I quote, put a firecracker in his penis and now there are pieces of penis everywhere outside the Chinese restaurant. Brilliant. But it's okay because it also states that they're now inside the Chinese restaurant, law enforcement are en route, and the scene is secure, unlike the 17-year-old's manhood. Down the rabbit hole I went in search of news reports for this incident and not one being found, which doesn't mean it didn't happen, but it doesn't confirm it either. But searching for news reports for this uncovered a lot of others, and I mean a lot. More than I can detail in one episode. That sort of a lot. So, no news report of a 17-year-old in America with firecrackers in his wee willy winky, but I did find news reports and a video of an incident from England in 2019. The video shows a man tied to a post, apparently willingly. At least he's not struggling or anything. Anyways, he's tied to a post, trousers round his ankles, while a woman ties firecrackers to his salami, and then lights them. She, of course, gets out of the way, and you see the firecrackers exploding, and the man crumple in pain. Then the video ends. I have to admit that I have no idea if that guy was willing or not. I mean, I have no idea why anyone would willingly have explosives near their manhood, let alone set them off. But as far as I can tell, to this day, there has been no report showing where this happened or the identities of anyone involved. Kinda makes you wonder what other ways men have accidentally destroyed their longest friend, doesn't it? Well, it made me wonder, and if you're wondering too, don't worry, I have you covered. Moving to Oxford, England, 2019, where a young teenage lad is casually riding his bike along with one hand on the handlebars and a drink in the other. Just casually riding, minding his own business when he rides his bike straight into a parked car, ejecting himself forward from the seat and degloving his sausage and ripping open his ball bag on the handlebars. That's gotta hurt. Luckily, surgeons were able to rebuild everything for him. Let's face it, girls dig scars. Moving back in time to 2009 in a little town called Wantage, England, where a carpenter is working at home and, you guessed it, accidentally cuts his own wee winky off with a saw. Luckily for him, his mother was home. She called an ambulance and paramedics later found him bleeding out in the bath. They were able to treat him and surgeons were able to reunite him and his little friend. Over to a little town called Stonehouse, Gloucestershire, England, where we find ourselves with another example of saw meets meat, with all the expected results. Only this time our man was at work. I don't know the gauge of the saw, but I'm guessing it was powered, because surgeons spent 8 hours making sure that our man and his little chap got to stay friends. Now, I can't help but note that all of these examples so far have been here in good old Blighty. But fear not, what started with an American EMS CAD picture was always going to end up back there, wasn't it? Orlando, Florida, that place of candy floss dreams, Disneyland, alligators, and of course a furniture foam company where our latest candidate had an argument with a peeler machine. I have no idea what one of those is, but it was fitted with a surgically sharp blade. This machine not only cut off his favourite member and its luggage, but cut through half of his body. Yet this guy survived, which for me can only mean one thing. The Avengers are real and he's definitely one of them. But it's not all industrial accidents either. By accident or design, the methods of manhood demise are something that make you question if the Final Destination movie franchise is actually onto something. America 2025 in an unknown location. A man managed to lose his member in a freak boating accident, yet somehow managed to have the presence of mind to retrieve it and preserve it in ice while awaiting EMS crews and a hospital visit to be surgically reunited with his longest friend. Staying in America and over to Jacksonville, Florida 2017, where we find a man climbing in his car one morning after spending a fine night with his girlfriend. As he sits behind the wheel, he manages to sit on his gun, which fires with the round going straight through his wee willy winky. Well, he rushes back into his girlfriend's house and into the bathroom where his girlfriend finds him inspecting the damage and rushes into hospital. Obviously, surgeons do what they can, and when he wakes up from his surgery, he finds the police there who subsequently charge him with illegal possession of a firearm. Turns out our man here is a convicted felon and shouldn't have one. I have to admit that's a bit harsh. I mean, depending on how bad the damage is, he may now never have any gun at all. But then this also kind of seems to be the standard, as our next candidate discovered as he was walking down the road one fine Indiana February morning of 2019. He was carrying an unholstered handgun in his waist. Well, that little weighty bugger starts slipping, so he grabs it to adjust it, and, well, as he did that, it fired, with the round going through his member and out through its luggage. Obviously, he was rushed to hospital where they did all they could to maintain that special friendship. And of course, he then had an awkward conversation with the police. As well, you guessed it, he shouldn't have had the firearm in the first place. Well, kids, one last shooting. I mean, I could give you more, but there's more to cover. This time we're in Chicago, Halloween morning of 2017, where our latest candidate robs a hot dog stand at gunpoint. After getting what he wanted and maybe a succulent hot dog for the road, he runs away. As he's running, his gun starts slipping in his waistband. As he adjusts it, you guessed it, the gun fires and shoots his trouser snake. Needless to say that he woke up in hospital to find himself charged with armed robbery and never got to go home to pack before going to stay in a government funded hotel. If those three tales tell us anything, well, I'd say it's always keep your firearm in a holster, practice firearm safety, stay legal, and I'm going to go ahead and assume that at least one of these, probably more, was a 60-20. Don't have one of those, they have minds of their own. For more information on that subject, you could look up Donut Operator or Angry Cops. They'll tell you more. Gun safety aside, moving on from things that are designed to destroy to those that are designed to make our lives at home easier, transforming our lives from everyday use of brooms to being able to utilize a power device to suck up all of the mess on our floors. Yet, as we discussed in our previous installment of the Idiocracy Files, Volume 1, Sex Kills, sometimes men and boys look to the smiling face of Henry Hoover and they see something more, something attractive, inviting almost. They have a little chat, things get amorous, one thing leads to another. They go somewhere private and nothing but pain ensues as Henry swallows more than goo. It's 1998 and we're in Long Branch, New Jersey, grand old USA. Our 51-year-old candidate calls for an ambulance, stating that someone had stabbed his wee Willy Winky while he slept, in his apartment, alone, that no one had broken into. He was taken to hospital where the damage was assessed, where medics noticed that just over half an inch of his longest serving friend's head was missing. Questions were asked as medical staff worked to assess the viability of reattachment if it could be found, which is when our candidate here came clean and told them that it could still be in the Hoover. Seems our man here adapted a Hoover pipe just for the purpose of romantic evenings. not realizing that there was a blade that serves to chew up things before it enters the Hoover bag. Seems it definitely chewed before it swallowed. I'm kind of feeling like we're picking on the Americans here. As fun as that can be, it's not really fair. Stupidity is a worldwide pandemic, as our next candidate from Germany would like to show us all. It's 2005 and our 61-year-old candidate is rushed to hospital after his appendage is decapitated and its body ravaged by a hoover, after apparently slipping whilst using a hoover to inflate an air mattress. I say apparently because that's what he told medics. Then he told his insurance company something different. Then something different again. And again. So the insurance company ordered reconstructive investigations. Well, those investigations proved that our man was telling lies. I think we all know what he was doing, and the likelihood is there's a Hoover somewhere showing a judge on a little doll where he was touched inappropriately. We've spent a bit of time here going through all the ways that men and boys destroyed their own breakfast, but it doesn't end there. See, there's this phrase that every man should remember if they wish to stay whole. There's nothing fiercer than a woman scorned, and their vengeance can certainly be something to behold, striking fear into man, beast, and small furry animals. What we speak of here even has a name. It's called Bobbatry, named for John and Lorena Bobbitt. Lorena, after migrating to America from Venezuela, met and married John in 1989. Things seemed fine at first as they began their life in Manassas, Virginia. However, things soon started to sour, so much so that John was arrested for domestic abuse and unwanted struggle cuddles in 1993, yet he was acquitted. Thing is, Lorena wasn't too happy with that. Not only had John been abusing her, he had even decided to star in two adult films. So she did what she thought was right. On June 23rd, 1993, after John came home, forced a struggle cuddle with her, and fell asleep, she took a carving knife from the kitchen, went to their bedroom, pulled back the sheets, and removed his manhood. Got in her car, left home, and drove around for a while before throwing the thing out the window and into a field. That said, she did feel guilty. She called 911, explained everything, even telling the police where the meat sausage could be found, which was later surgically reattached. Lorena was acquitted on grounds of temporary insanity, which, if I'm honest, seems very fair. Bobbatry became the term to describe something that has actually gone on for many years and was actually deemed a pandemic in Thailand through the 1970s and 80s. Women taking their revenge on their male partner's infidelities or abuse by cutting off their man sausage, sometimes with hilarious methods. Allow me to provide you with a few little examples of just what I mean by that. Bangkok, Thailand, 1997. A woman found out her husband was stepping out with other ladies, so she waited till he was asleep, cut off his favourite friend, tied it to a helium balloon and let it float away out of the window, before grabbing her suitcase and leaving. All the news reports I found all state that the police are still looking for her. Bihar, India, 2024. A 25-year-old woman who just happened to be a doctor was left the altar by a boyfriend of 5 years. So she did what any woman of sound mind would do. She went home, got changed, and invited her Arab boyfriend home to talk, and cut off his meat kebab. His screams alerted the neighbours, who called the police, and they subsequently found him lying in a pool of his own blood. Yet it's not all knives here, as two Russian women decided they would demonstrate. Our first Russian lady took her revenge in 2009 in an unknown Russian location. Our lady here had been living with her boyfriend for 2 years. She felt that things were at a point of natural progression and started to talk about marriage. Well, her boyfriend disagreed and stated, and I quote, "I would rather go back to my wife." Well, gentlemen, that is probably the worst thing he could have said, and his girlfriend agreed. She suggested that they have a farewell dinner, something nice. He agreed, so she cooked his favourite meal and got him drunk, waited for him to fall asleep, tied fireworks to his little friend, lit the fuse, and watched the show. The end result was the complete destruction of his meat and two veg, and a 12-year prison sentence for her. Our second Russian lady took her revenge in Moscow 2025. She found text messages on her husband's phone between him and another woman, detailing their relationship and therefore his infidelity. Well, she didn't confront him. Rather, she bode her time, sharpened her teeth into fangs, and cooked a romantic meal. Fed her husband, got him drunk, took him to bed, and bit off his sausage. Now, kudos to the man here because he did manage to preserve his meat in a glass of saline. However, while surgeons were able to reattach it, it's completely unfunctional. A life sentence of literally swinging in the breeze. Our Fang lady here, though, she did get sentenced to 5 years inside. Our last featured revenge, though, is one that gives me flashbacks of one of my favourite film franchises, Hostel. Apologies to our Mexican viewers, though, because I'm probably going to butcher the name of this town. Juarez, Mexico, 2014. Two men are drinking together when one gets a bit too drunky, and, well, mistook his friend for a woman or something, as he began touching him up and trying to get amorous. Well, the other man, who definitely was not a woman, wasn't too pleased with this and kept pushing him away. And when Mr. Amorous wouldn't stop, he shot him, obviously. Shot and wounded, the fella fell to the ground and lived long enough to watch as the man, not woman, cut off his meaty part and fed it to a dog. Reading this, I do feel the urge to know, did they watch Hostel first? Anyways, that covers all the examples I'm giving today. This has run long, but trust me when I say there are plenty more examples I could give, some of which I'm staking my flag and saying that the guys definitely deserved it. Those that force struggle cuddles on anyone of any age group deserve all they get in my book. So much so that I was excited when I read about a device called Rapex. A device designed to be, shall we say, worn by a lady. And should someone attempt to grape, well, the thing goes off like a Venus flytrap. The perpetrator gets stuck in a barbed device and has no choice but to seek urgent medical care. Imagine my anger when I found out that it never went into mass production because it may breach the criminal's human rights. Really? Anyways, I promised to tell you how I nearly joined the list of the sad fellas we discussed here today, didn't I? Well, about 10 years ago, I was working away from home. I was in a bit of a hurry when I stopped to relieve myself. As I was in a rush, I wasn't really paying attention to what I was doing, and I managed to zip myself into the flies of the jeans I was wearing. Not catch myself, nip myself. I was completely zipped in all the way. To say this hurt would be an understatement. I was in the middle of nowhere with no way of getting to any help at all, let alone medical help. So it was completely on me to sort this. It took me 2 hours to free myself. 2 hours. It took that long that I even considered cutting the flies out of my jeans just to see if the trap bit would fall off. Luckily, I didn't scalp him or damage my longest friend's head, but I did pretty much destroy his hood, which eventually had to be surgically removed. But hey, my man is still there and works, so I'm a lot better off than anyone else featured today. On that somber, happy note, we'll end it there. Thanks for joining us today. Remember to give us a like and a subscribe. I'm off for some rum and a lay down. See you next time, kids.